Good morning, all of you. Myself, Dr. Ajit Kumar Surana, Assistant Professor in the Department of Physiotherapy, Suresh Gyanviar University. Today, we are discussing about a topic. First of all, the learning objectives of the. These are the learning objectives. First, we recognize the clinical presentation and describe the acute management of the subarachnoid hemorrhage. We recognize the subarachnoid hemorrhage and its clinical presentation, any clinical features its presentation, and we describe the acute management of the subarachnoid hemorrhage. Second, we recognize the clinical presentation and describe the acute management of the meningitis or encephalitis. Now, second one, any condition of the meningitis, encephalitis, we recognize its clinical features or its acute management for the meningitis or for the encephalitis. Now, third one is that we recognize the clinical presentation and describe the acute management of the temporal arthritis. Any problem related to the temporal arthritis we recognize and its clinical features of the temporal arthritis. Now next is that we describe the pathophysiology, its clinical presentation or clinical features, any differential diagnosis, any diagnostic consultation, and the basic management of the headache. Next is that we describe the pathophysiology, any clinical features of the presentation, is differential diagnostic consideration, and the basic management of the central nervous system infections. Now we describe the pathophysiology, clinical presentation, differential diagnostic, and the consultation, and the basic management of the brain tumors. Now we differentiate among the clinical symptoms associated with headache and the method of evaluation for further work of the diagnostic. Now we recognize acute hemorrhage and ischemic stroke on the CT of the brain. So these are the learning objectives for the any type of diseases of the clinical neurology, like recognize the clinical presentation and describe the acute management of the subarachnoid type of hemorrhage, recognize the clinical presentation or clinical features and describe the acute management of meningitis or encephalitis like conditions, recognize the clinical presentation and describe the acute management of temporal arthritis conditions. And now we describe the pathophysiology of the disease, its clinical presentation or clinical features, differential diagnostic consideration, and the basic management of the headache-like of conditions. Now we describe the pathophysiology, its clinical presentation or clinical features, its differential or diagnose, how can we diagnose the disease, and its basic management of the central nervous system infection. Describe the pathophysiology, clinical presentation, and differential diagnostic consideration, and the basic management of the brain tumor-like conditions. Now we differentiate among the clinical syndrome associated with headache and the method of the evaluation for further work of the diagnosis. And now we recognize acute hemorrhage and the ischemic stroke on the CT of the brain. These are the learning objectives of the clinical neurology. Now we are discussing about the cerebellar ataxia. Classification of the cerebellar ataxia. Congenital, it is a cerebral ataxia. It is a congenital or acquired, acute or subacute or chronic, familial or non-familial, AD or AR or sporadic, ipsilateral signs or bilateral signs, symmetrical or asymmetrical, progressive or slowly progressive, static or improving, recurrent, episodic. AWAF, CN, pyramidal, extrapyramidal, peripheral neuropathy or features. So this is the classification of the cerebellar ataxia. In cerebellar ataxia, in classification of the cerebellar ataxia, it is a congenital or acquired, acute or subacute or chronic, familial or non-familial, AD or AR or sporadic, ipsilateral signs or they have ipsilateral signs or bilateral signs. It is a symmetrical or asymmetrical, progressive or slowly progressive, static or improving, recurrent or episodic. AWAF, CN, pyramidal, extrapyramidal, peripheral neuropathy features. Now the hereditary group. In hereditary groups, there is autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia. In hereditary group, there is autosomal dominant cerebellar ataxia, spinocerebellar ataxia, type 1 to 31, spinocerebellar ataxia 36, episodic ataxia, autosomal recessive cerebral. Second one is the autosomal recessive cerebral ataxia. In autosomal recessive cerebral ataxia, there is Friedreich ataxia, telangiectasia, or spastic ataxia. Now, third one is the X-linked cerebellar ataxia. In X-linked cerebellar ataxia, there is fragile X-tremor ataxia syndrome. Next one is the mitochondrial. In mitochondrial, there is myoclonus epilepsy with red fibers. Myoclonus epilepsy with red fibers. Kearney-Sayre syndrome. So these are the hereditary group of ataxia. In hereditary group, there are mainly four types. First one is the autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia. In autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia, there is spinocerebellar ataxia type 1 to 31, spinocerebellar ataxia 36, episodic ataxias. Second one is the autosomal recessive cerebellar ataxia. In autosomal recessive cerebellar ataxia, there is Friedreich telangiectasia, spastic ataxia. Third one is the X-linked. In X-linked cerebellar ataxia, there is fragile X-tremor ataxia syndrome. Next one is the mitochondrial. In mitochondrial, there is myoclonus epilepsy with red fibers. Kearney-Sayre syndromes. Now, next one is the non-hereditary groups or sporadic. Next one is the non-hereditary group or sporadic. In non-hereditary group or sporadic, there is degenerative progressive. There is degenerative progressive. In degenerative progressive, there is MSSC, idiopathic late onset cerebral ataxia. Idiopathic late onset cerebral ataxia. Second one is the non-progressive developmental disorders. In non-progressive developmental disorders, there is Cayman ataxia, Joubert syndrome. Third one is the toxins-induced cerebral degeneration. In toxin-induced cerebral degeneration, there is alcohol, anticonvulsants, anti-cancer drugs, etc. Next is the autoimmunity associated. In autoimmunity associated, there is multiple sclerosis, gluten ataxia with anti-GAD-AB. Next is the paraneoplastic cerebellar degeneration. Paraneoplastic cerebellar degeneration infection mediated. In paraneoplastic cerebellar degeneration infection mediated, there is post-viral infection like cerebralitis, enteric fever, adenoretroviral malaria, or the prions. So these are the non-hereditary group or sporadic group of ataxia. In this, the first one is degenerative process, MSSC, idiopathic late onset cerebral ataxia. Second one is the non-progressive developmental disorder. In non-progressive developmental disorders, there is Cayman ataxia, Joubert syndrome. Next one is the toxins-induced cerebral degeneration. In toxin-induced cerebral degeneration, there is alcohol, anticonvulsants, anti-cancer drugs, etc. Next one is the autoimmunity associated. In autoimmunity associated, there is multiple sclerosis, gluten ataxia with anti-GAD-AB. Next one is the paraneoplastic cerebral degeneration infection mediated. In paraneoplastic cerebral degeneration infection mediated, there is post-viral infection, cerebralitis, enteric fever, adenoretroviral malaria, or prions. Now, next one is the developmental malformation or congenital. Developmental malformation and congenital. In developmental malformation and congenital, there is Dandy Walker malformation, Chiari malformation, or Vermeer agenesis. So these are the developmental malformation or the congenital. In this, there is Dandy Walker malformation, Chiari malformation, or the Vermeer agenesis, etc. Now, the diagnostic approaches of the ataxia. In this, there is meticulous evaluation of the history. Meticulous evaluation of the history. In meticulous evaluation of the history, first one is the age at onset, at which age the disease is started. The first one is the age at onset. Second one is the course of the disease. Now, third one is the which drug is intake. So drug intake. Now next is the family history. Next is the personal, social, and the occupational information of the patient. Now the distribution of the ataxia, then the history of the other systemic illness. So these are the meticulous evaluation of the history. In meticulous evaluation of the history, there is age at onset, course of disease, drug intake, family history, personal, social, and the occupational information, distribution of the ataxia, history of other systemic illness. Now next is the neurological evaluation. Second is the neurological evaluation. Then next is the ancillary tests. So these are the diagnostic approaches of the ataxia. First is the Mendelian's evolution of the history. In Mendelian evolution of the history, there is age at onset, course of drugs, drug intake, family history, personal, social, and the occupational information, distribution of the ataxia, history of the other system illness. Now, second one is the neurological evaluation. Now, next is the angulary test. Now, first one is the history. In history, first one is the age at onset. Age at onset. In age at onset, first one is the childhood. Second one is the adult. In childhood, it may be congenital, metabolic, infectious, posterior fossa tumors, hereditary ataxia. These are the more common. In age at onset, first one is the childhood. In childhood, there is congenital, there are metabolic due to any infection, so they are infectious, posterior fossa tumors, hereditary ataxia or more common. Now second one is the in adult. In adult there is sporadic ataxias, hereditary ataxias. In adults they are sporadic ataxias and the hereditary ataxias. Now second one is the course of illness or the progression of the disease. Course of illness and the progression of the disease. In course of illness and the progression of the disease, there are mainly three types: acute, subacute, and the chronic. First one is the in acute condition. In acute condition, they may be metabolic or toxic, infectious, inflammatory, or traumatic. Acute, they are metabolic or toxic, infectious, inflammatory, and the traumatic. Now, second one is the subacute. Subacute, they are metabolic and toxic, infectious, inflammatory, paraneoplastic, or the tumor. These are the subacute. And so they are metabolic, toxic, infectious, inflammatory, paraneoplastic, or the tumor. Now third one is the chronic. In chronic they are more likely genetic. Chronic they are more likely genetic, degenerative tumor or paraneoplastic. So this is the history of the ataxia, history of the disease. First one is the age at onset. Age at onset, it may be of two types: in childhood and in adulthood. In childhood they are congenital, metabolic, infectious, posterior fossa tumors, hereditary ataxia. They are more common. Now second one is the adult. In adults they are sporadic ataxia or the hereditary ataxias. Now second one is the course of illness or the progression of the disease. They are acute, subacute, and the chronic. In acute they are metabolic and the toxic, infectious, inflammatory, or traumatic. In subacute they are metabolic, toxic, infectious, inflammatory, paraneoplastic, and tumors. In chronic they are more likely genetic, degenerative, tumor, and the paraneoplastic. Now the next is the drug intake. Next is the drug intake. In drug intake, the drugs that are given to the patient, these are the drugs like phenytoins, barbiturates, lithium, suppressants. In immunosuppressant, they are methotrexate, cyclosporine, chemotherapy. In chemotherapy, there are fluorouracil or cytarabine. So these are the drug intakes. Drugs may be mainly are the drugs are the phenytoins, barbiturates, lithium, immunosuppressants, methotrexate, cyclosporine. In chemotherapy, they are fluorouracil and the cytarabine. Now the family history. In family history, study at least 3 generations of the patient. Study in family history, there is study at least 3 generations of the patient. Now second one is the consanguinity of the patient, then ethnicity of the patient. So this is all about the family history of the patient. Study at least 3 generations, consanguinity, and ethnicity. Now next one is the social and the occupational history. Social and the occupational history. In social and the occupational history, alcohol and drugs use, toxins like heavy metals, solvents, thallium, smoking, or vascular. These are the social and the occupational history of the patient. Now next one is the distribution of the ataxia. Distribution of the ataxia may be distributed into 2 types: symmetric and the asymmetric. In symmetric there are acquired, hereditary, degenerative ataxia. Systemic, they are acquired, hereditary, or degenerative ataxia. Now second one is the asymmetric. Asymmetric, they are vascular, tumors, congenital causes. These are the asymmetric. These are vascular, tumors, congenital causes. Now the other system illness. In other system illness, there are gastrointestinal symptoms. In other system illness, there are gastrointestinal symptoms. In gastrointestinal system, there are gluten ataxia or mass. In second one is the mass lesion. Mass lesion are the paraneoplastic ataxia. So these are the other system illness. So this is all about the Other system illness, in other system there is gastrointestinal symptoms, gluten ataxia, mass lesions. In mass lesion they have paraneoplastic ataxia. Now, next is in children, mainly in children, the history in the children. The children may refusal to walk or with a wide base drunken gait mainly comes in the children. History of the children, there is children is refused to walk or with a widespread or drunken gait. Now second one is the vertigo, dizziness and the vomiting. Vertigo, dizziness and the vomiting are common in the children's. Personality and behavioral changes, personality and the behavioral changes of the children's. Abnormal mental status, abnormal mental status of the children. A history of head trauma or neck trauma, a history of the head trauma and the neck trauma. Patients with recent infection or the vaccination, patients are more prone to the infection that are with a recent infection or the vaccination. Previous similar episodes of acute ataxia. Due to the previous similar episodes of the acute ataxia, children with family members with ataxia. Now next is the children with family members with ataxia. So these are the history of the in the children. The children may refusal to walk or with a walk with a wide base, or they comes with a drunken gait. Next is vertigo, dizziness and vomiting are common in the children. Personality and the behavioral changes, abnormal mental status, a history of head trauma and the neck trauma, patient with recent infection or the vaccination, previous similar episodes of the acute ataxia. Next is the children with family members with the ataxia. Now the examination of the ataxia. Examination of the ataxia. In examination, first one is the neurological examination of the ataxia. Other system evaluation like breast lump, mass per abdomen, etc. Rating scales. In rating scales, first one is the International Cooperative Ataxia Rating Scale. International Cooperative Ataxia Rating Scale. Scale for the assessment and rating of the ataxia. Scale for the assessment and rating of ataxia. Tremor scales, unified MSA rating score, unified and MSA rating score. So these are the examination of the ataxia. In examination, first one is the neurological examination of the ataxia. Second one is the other system evaluation. In other system evaluation, there is breast lump, mass per abdomen, etc. Now the rating scales for the ataxia. In rating scale, there is International Cooperative Ataxia Rating Scale, International Cooperative Ataxia Rating Scale, scale for the assessment and the rating of ataxia, tremor scales, unified MSA rating score. So these are the examination of the ataxia. Now next is the ancillary test. Ancillary test. Ancillary test. First one is the neuroimaging. Neuroimaging is MRI of the brain and the spine. Ancillary test, there is neuroimaging. In neuroimaging, the MRI of the brain and the spine. Electrodiagnostic test. Electrodiagnostic is test like EMG, NCV, EEG, evoked potential, ERG. EMG, electromyography. NCV is the nerve conduction velocity. EEG, electroencephalography, or evoked potential, ERG. These are the electrodiagnostic tests. Now test of the autonomic dysfunction. Next is the test of the autonomic dysfunction. Test of the autonomic dysfunction, they are the tilt table test, sympathetic skin responses and other tests. Tilt table test, sympathetic skin response and the other tests. These are the test of autonomic dysfunction. Now next is the ophthalmological examination. Ophthalmological examination, there is pigmentary retinopathy, macular degeneration, cataracts, Kaiser-Fisher rings. In ophthalmologic examination, there is pigmentary retinopathy, macular degeneration, cataracts, Kaiser-Fisher rings. So these are the ancillary tests. First one is the ancillary test. There is neuroimaging. In neuroimaging, MRI of the brain and the spine. Second one is the electrodiagnostic test. Electrodiagnostic test. In electrodiagnostic, there is EMG and NCD, EEG, evoked potential and the ERG. Next is the test of the autonomic dysfunctions. In test of the autonomic dysfunction, these are the tilt table tests, sympathetic skin responses and the other tests. Next is the ophthalmologic examination. In ophthalmologic examination, there is pigmentary retinopathy, macular degenerations, cataracts, Kaiser-Fisher rings. Now the ancillary test. Ancillary tests, these are the genetic tests available in India. These are the genetic tests available in India. AD, in SCA, SCA 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 17, 23, and the 28. They are PLA, AR, FRDA, AO, A1 and 2, AT, AR, SSC, X-linked, FXTAS, mitochondrial entire genome sequence. In laboratory studies, there is metabolic or immune function. In metabolic, there is thyroid function, vitamin B12, E and B1, serum cholesterol and the plasma lipoprotein profile, serum cholesterol and urine bile alcohol, phytanic acid, toxicology screen. Second one is the immune function. Immune function there is immunoglobulin levels, anti-gliadin antibodies, paraneoplastic antibodies. So these are the ancillary tests. In ancillary tests, these are the genetic tests. ADAR, X-linked, FXTAS, mitochondrial. In mitochondria, there is entire genome sequencing. Laboratory studies. In laboratory studies, there is metabolic or immunofunction. In metabolic, there is thyroid function, vitamin B12, E and B1, serum cholesterol and plasma lipoprotein profile, serum cholesterol and urine bile alcohol, phytanic acid, toxicology screen. In immunofunction, there is immunoglobulin levels, anti-gliadin antibodies, GAD antibodies, paraneoplastic antibodies. Now in laboratory studies, next is the mitochondrial. In mitochondria, there is serum lactase and the pyruvate. In mitochondria, there is serum lactate and the pyruvates. And the other laboratory studies, in other there is heavy metals, peripheral blood smear for acanthocytes, very long chain fatty acids, hexosaminidase A and B, alpha fetoprotein and immunoglobulins, serum ceruloplasmin and 24 hours urinary coppers. Now next laboratory study is the tissue study. In tissue study there is muscle, skin and the nerve biopsies. And now next is the CSF or cerebrospinal fluid study. In cerebrospinal fluid study there is cell count, glucose and the protein, oligoclonal bands, 14, 3 protein, GAD antibodies, paraneoplastic antibodies, lactate or the pyruvates. So these are the laboratory studies. In laboratory, there is first one is the mitochondrial. In others there is heavy metals, peripheral blood smear for the actinocytes, very long chain fatty acids, hexosaminidase A and B, alpha fetoprotein, immunoglobulin, serum ceruloplasmin, and 24 hours urinary copper. Tissue study. In tissue study there is muscle, skin and nerve biopsies. CSF. In CSF there is cell counts, glucose and protein, oligoclonal bands, 14-3 protein, GAD antibodies, paraneoplastic antibodies, lactase or pyruvate. Now the hereditary groups. In hereditary groups there are autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia, spinocerebellar ataxia, autosomal recessive cerebral ataxia, X-linked, mitochondrial. Now the introduction of the autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia. In autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia, they are clinically and the genetically heterogeneous group of neurodegenerative disorders. Autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia. These are clinically and the genetically heterogeneous group of the neurodegenerative. These are the heterogeneous group of the neurodegenerative disorders. They are characterized by progressive cerebellar and the spinal cord dysfunction. They are mainly characterized by the progressive cerebellar and the spinal cord dysfunctions. Now the clinical features of the autosomal dominant cerebellar ataxias are gait ataxia, limb uncoordination, dysarthria, pyramidal and the extrapyramidal involvement, oculomotor incoordination, peripheral neuropathy, retinal degeneration. These are the clinical features of the autosomal dominant cerebral ataxia. First one is the gait ataxia, limb incoordination, dysarthria, pyramidal and the extrapyramidal involvement, oculomotor incoordination, peripheral neuropathy and the retinal degeneration. Now the clinical behavior of common SCA subtypes. Clinical behavior of the common SCA subtypes. They are late onset, third to fourth decades. Third to the fourth decade. Diffuse neurodegeneration, predominantly OPCA. They are diffuse neurodegeneration, predominantly OPCA. Variable rates of progression. Rapid progression, ADCA1, ADCA2, ADCA4. Repeat expansion, SCA progress is rapidly. Higher repeats, leads to the increased severity of the disease. Slow progression ADCA third, pure cerebellar forms. Variable age at onset are the anticipation. Okay, we are discussing about the ataxia. Ataxia, it comes from a Greek word means a lack of plus taxia means order, or lack of order is called as ataxia. In Greek word, ataxia means lack of order. Greek a means lack of, or taxia means order, means lack of order. According to Greek word, a means lack of, or taxia means lack of order. In ataxia of rate, rhythm, and force of contraction of voluntary movements, of rate, rhythm, and force of contraction of the voluntary movements. Disorganized, poorly coordinated, and clumsy movements comes in ataxia. Traditionally used specifically for lesions involving Traditionally, they are used specifically for lesions involving cerebellum or its pathway, proprioceptive sensory pathways. So, this is the introduction of ataxia. Ataxia means, in Greek words, a means lack of, and taxia means lack of order, or of rate, rhythm, and force of contraction of voluntary movements. They are disorganized, poorly coordinated, or clumsy movements. Traditionally used specifically for lesions involving cerebellum or its pathway, proprioceptive sensory pathways. Now the neural localization of the ataxia. In neural localization, cerebellum, this is the most common part. Cerebellum is the most common part. Now second one is the sensory pathways. Sensory pathway, they cause the sensory ataxia. In sensory pathway, there is posterior columns, dorsal root ganglia, and peripheral nerves. They are involved in sensory pathways. Now frontal lobe lesions, frontocerebellar fibers. So this is the neural localization pathway. Cerebellum, it is the most common. Second one is the sensory pathways. They cause sensory ataxia of posterior columns, dorsal root ganglia, peripheral nerves, frontal lobe lesions, frontocerebellar fibers. Now the first one is the sensory ataxia. What is sensory ataxia? Sensory ataxia or sensory neuropathy and postural column disease of the spinal cord. Sensory ataxia, they are also called as the sensory neuropathy and the posterior column disease of the spinal cord are called as sensory ataxia. In sensory ataxia, the mainly disabilities are the loss of distal joints, position sense. In this, there is loss of distal joint, position sense, absence of cerebellar signs such as dysarthria or the nystagmus, absence of the cerebral signs such as dysarthria or the nystagmus, or loss of tendon reflexes, corrective effects of vision on sensory ataxia, or Romberg signs comes in sensory ataxia. So this is all about the sensory ataxia. Sensory ataxia, they are also called as the sensory neuropathy and posterior column disease of the spinal cord. They are called as the sensory neuropathy and the posterior column disease of the spinal cord are called sensory. In this, the deformities mainly comes are the loss of distal joint, position sense, absence of cerebellar signs, absence of the cerebellar signs such as the dysarthria or the nystagmus. Nystagmus mainly is a eye disorder. Dysarthria, loss of tendon reflexes, may comes in the sensory ataxia. Corrective effects of the vision on the sensory ataxia and the Romberg sign. Now the causes of the sensory ataxia. Main causes of the sensory ataxia. First one is the polyneuropathy. Causes of the sensory ataxia. First cause is due to the polyneuropathy. In polyneuropathy, there is paraneoplastic sensory neuronopathy, Sjogren's syndromes, Miller-Fisher syndrome, dysprotonemia, cisplatin, pyridoxine excess, acute sensory neuronopathy, chronic ataxic neuropathy. So these all are the polyneuropathies. They cause the sensory ataxia, like paraneoplastic sensory neuronopathy, Sjogren's syndrome, Miller-Fisher syndrome, dysprotonemia, cisplatin, pyridoxine excess, acute sensory neuronopathy, or chronic ataxic neuropathy. Now second one is the myelopathy. Second is the myelopathy. In myelopathy, there are the multiple sclerosis, tumor or the cord compressions, vascular malformation or the vacuolar myelopathy. These all are comes in the myelopathies. Myelopathy is multiple sclerosis, tumor or the cord compression, vascular malformation or vacuolar myelopathies. Now, next cause of the sensory ataxia is the myeloneuropathy. Myeloneuropathy. In myeloneuropathy, there are Friedreich ataxia, vitamin B12 deficiency, vitamin E deficiency, tabus dorsalis, and the nitrous oxide. They all are comes in the myeloneuropathy. So these are the causes of the sensory ataxia: polyneuropathy, myelopathy, or myeloneuropathy. Now, second one is the cortical ataxia. Cortical ataxia, they mainly affect the frontal lobe. Ataxia refers to the disturbed coordination due to the dysfunction of the contralateral frontal lobe. Frontal lobe ataxia, they are referred to the disturbed coordination due to the dysfunction of the contralateral frontal lobe. If any disturbance occurs or disturbed coordination occurs due to the dysfunction of the contralateral frontal lobes, they cause the frontal lobe ataxia. Now they results from the disease involving the frontopontocerebellar fibers. The results from disease involves the frontopontocerebellar fibers in route to synapse in the pontine nuclei. The causes occurs due to the cortical ataxia are the hyperreflexia, increased tone and the release reflexes. There comes due to in condition of the cortical ataxia like hyperreflexia and increased tone and the release reflexes. Now a lesion of the superior parietal lobule, a lesion of the superior parietal lobule area 5 and 7 of the Brodmann may really result in the ataxia of the contralateral limbs. So this is all about the cortical ataxia. Cortical ataxia, also called as the frontal lobe ataxia, they refers to the disturbed coordination. Occurs due to the dysfunction of the contralateral frontal lobe. Results from disease involving the frontopontocerebellar fibers en route to the synapse in the pontine nuclei. Hyperreflexia, they cause the hyperreflexia, increased tone and the release reflexes. A lesion of the superior parietal lobule, area 5 and 7 of Brodmann may really result in the ataxia of the contralateral limbs. Now the next is the vestibular dysfunctions. Vestibular dysfunction occurs due to the ataxia are the vertigo is prominent. Vertigo in vestibular dysfunction, vertigo is prominent. Consistence fall to the one side. Patient may consistently fall to the one side. Nystagmus may occurs in ataxic patient. Limb ataxia is absent, but the limb ataxia is patient. Speech is normal. Joint position sense is normal. Patient complain of vertigo rather than the imbalance. Patient may complain of the vertigo rather than the imbalance. So these are the vestibular dysfunctions. In vestibular disturbance, there is vertigo is prominent, consistence fall to the one side, nystagmus, limb ataxia is absent, speech is normal, joint position sense is normal. Patient complaint of vertigo rather than the imbalance. Now the next is the thalamic ataxia. Next ataxia is the thalamic ataxia. They are the transient ataxia affecting contralateral limb after lesions of the anterior thalamus. Transient ataxia, they affecting the contralateral limbs. Transient ataxia, they mainly affecting the thalamic ataxia are also called as the transient ataxia. Transient ataxia, they mainly affecting the contralateral limbs after lesions of the anterior thalamus. May see associated motor signs from the involvement of the internal capsules. They may see associated motor signs from the involvement of the internal capsule. Also can result in the asterixis in the contralateral limbs. Asterixis in the contralateral limbs. So this is all about the thalamic ataxia. They are also called as the transient ataxia, or they mainly affecting contralateral limbs. They mainly affecting the contralateral limbs after lesions of the anterior lesions. When the contralateral limbs affect just after the lesion of the anterior thalamus. May see associated motor like pyramidal tract signs from the involvement of the internal capsule. They also can result in the asterixis in the contralateral limb or hemiasterixis. Now the cerebellum. What is cerebellum? In cerebellum there is vermis, intermediate, lateral cortex, flocculus. They mainly comes in vermis. Vermis is the vestigial nucleus, balance and ocular movement. Vermis, it is a vestigial nucleus comes in vermis. It main work of the vermis or main function of the vermis is balance and ocular movement of the body. They are used in the balance and the ocular movement of the body. Next is the intermediate. In intermediate, there is interpost nuclei. Comes is interpost nuclei. They are function of the interpost nuclei is execution of the movement and the gait. Execution of the movements and the gait. Now next is lateral cortex. Lateral cortex in this dentate nuclei comes in dentate nuclei. The function of the dentate nuclei is the motor planning and the limb coordination. They are used for the motor planning and the limb coordination. Next is flocculus. Flocculus, they are used for the vestibulo-ocular reflexes. So these are the parts of the cerebellum: vermis, intermediate, lateral cortex, and the flocculus. First one is the vermis. In vermis, there is fastigial nucleus. They are they are used for the balance and the ocular movements. Second one is the intermediate. Intermediates, in intermediate there is interpost nuclei. Interpost nuclei, they are function of the interpost nuclei are the executions of the movements and the gait. Next is the lateral cortex. In lateral cortex there is dentate nucleus. Dentate nucleus, the work of the dentate nucleus is the motor planning or limb coordination. Next is the flocculus. Flocculus is used for the vestibulo-ocular reflexes. So this is all about the cerebellum. Two parts of the cerebellum, when they are joined together, they are called as the pleocerebellum. Now, then next is the clinical features of the cerebellar disease. Clinical features of the cerebellar disease. Ataxia is common, appendicular or the axial. Ataxia, it may be appendicular or axial. Dysmetria, next clinical feature of the cerebellum is the dysmetria. Next is dyssynergia, dysdiadochokinesia, rebound phenomenon or dysarthria. Tremors, titubation and the increased postural sway, hypotonia, asthenia or the nystagmus. These are the clinical features of the cerebellar diseases. Ataxia, dysmetria, dyssynergia, dysdiadochokinesia, rebound phenomenon, dysarthria, tremor, titubation and the increased postural sway, hypotonia or asthenia or nystagmus. These are the clinical features of the cerebral ataxia. Now the cerebral ataxia. Cerebral, sensory ataxia and the frontal ataxia. Now we subdivided the cerebral, sensory ataxia and the frontal ataxia. First, the base of support for the cerebral ataxia, the base of support of the patient is wide based. In cerebral ataxia, it is wide based. In sensory ataxia, it is narrow base or looks down. In sensory ataxia, it is narrow base or it is looks down. In frontal ataxia, it is wide based, same as the cerebral ataxia. In cerebral ataxia and the frontal ataxia, base of support is the wide base, but in sensory ataxia, it is narrow base and looks down. Now the velocity in the cerebral ataxia, it is variable. Velocity in the cerebral ataxia is variable. In sensory ataxia, it is slow, but in frontal ataxia, it is very slow. So the velocity, it is slow, and in frontal ataxia, it is very slow. Now the stride length in the cerebral ataxia, it may be irregular, it is not regular, it is irregular or the lurching. In stride in the cerebral ataxia, it is irregular and the lurching. But in sensory ataxia, it is regular with path deviation. In sensory ataxia, it is regular with the path deviation. And in frontal ataxia, it is short and the shuffling. So these are the stride in the cerebral, sensory and the frontal. In cerebral ataxia, it is irregular or lurching. In sensory ataxia, it is regular with path deviation, and in frontal ataxia, it is short or shuffling. Now the Romberg sign in the cerebral ataxia, it may be present or it may be absent. Romberg sign in the cerebral, it may be present or it may be absent. In sensory ataxia, it is unsteady and falls. But in frontal ataxia, it is same as the cerebral ataxia. It may be present or it may be absent. So, rhombus, it is present or absent in the cerebellar. In sensory ataxia, it is unsteady or false, or in frontal ataxia, it may be present or absent. Now the heel shin. Heel shin, it is abnormal in the cerebellar, or in sensory ataxia, it is present or it may be absent, or in frontal ataxia, it is normal. So heel shin is abnormal in the cerebral ataxia. In sensory, it may be present or the absent, or in frontal ataxia, it may be normal. Now the initiation of the movement, in the cerebral ataxia is same, and in sensory area it is same. Initiation of the movement, it is same in the cerebral, and the sensory ataxia is normal, but in frontal ataxia it is hesitant. Means the patient may hesitant while performing, by initiating a movement, or it may be normal in both cerebral and the sensory ataxia. Now the turns, they are unsteady in the cerebral ataxia. In sensory ataxia, they may be present or they may be absent, but in frontal ataxia, they are hesitant and the multi steps. So turns in the cerebral ataxia, they are unsteady. In sensory ataxia, they may be present or they may be absent, but in frontal ataxia, they are hesitant and the multi steps. Now the postural instability. Postural instability is present in the cerebral ataxia, and in sensory ataxia, it may be present, or in frontal ataxia, it is present. Now the fall in cerebral ataxia, it is a late event in the cerebral ataxia. In sensory ataxia, it is frequent. In sensory ataxia, the patient may frequently fall, or in frontal ataxia, it may frequently fall. So a fall is a late event in the cerebral, but in sensory and the frontal ataxia, it is frequent. Now the differentiation of the imbalance due to the frontal gate disorder and the extrapyramidal disorder from the cerebral. Differentiation of the imbalance due to the frontal gate disorder and the extrapyramidal disorder from the cerebral ataxia. Sorry. First is the features: frontal gate disorder, extrapyramidal, and the cerebral ataxia. First feature: posture. In frontal gate disorder, it is upright. Posture is upright in the frontal gate disorder. In extrapyramidal, it is stoop posture or flexed posture. In extrapyramidal, it is stoop posture or it is flexed trunk. In cerebral ataxia, it is stoop or lean forward. Patient may be stoop or it is lean forward. The posture in the frontal gate disorder, it is upright. In extrapyramidal, it is stoop or it is flexed trunk. And in cerebral ataxia, it is stoop or lean forward. Now the stance in the frontal gate disorder, it is wide based. Stance is wide based in the frontal gate disorder. In extrapyramidal, it is narrow, or in cerebral ataxia, it is wide based. Stance is frontal gate disorder, it is wide based. In extrapyramidal, it is narrow, or in cerebral ataxia, it is wide based. Now the initiation of the gate. Starting of the gate. Start in frontal gate disorder, the patient may start with hesitation, same as in extrapyramidal, the patient may start with the hesitation, but in cerebral ataxia, it is normal. So the initiation of the gate in frontal gate ataxia, it is the patient may start with the hesitation. In extrapyramidal, it start with the hesitation, but in cerebral ataxia, the gait is normal. Now the stepping. In frontal gait disorder, the stepping is shuffling. The patient may shuffle while stepping. In extrapyramidal, the patient may shuffle, same as the frontal gait disorders. In cerebral ataxia, the patient stagger or lurches by stepping. Patient may stagger or lurches. So these are the stepping. In frontal gait disorder and the extrapyramidal, the patient may shuffles by stepping, but in cerebral ataxia, the patient may staggers or lurches while stepping. Now the stride length. Stride length in frontal gait disorder, the stride length is short. In extrapyramidal, it is short, same as the frontal gait disorders, but in cerebral ataxia, it is variable. Stride length is variable in the cerebral ataxia. Now the next is the speed. In frontal gait disorder, the speed is very slow. In extrapyramidal, the speed is slow, and in cerebral ataxia, it is normal or slow. So the in frontal gait disorder, the speed is very slow. In extrapyramidal, it is slow, and in the cerebral ataxia, it is normal or slow. Now the fascination, the frontal gait disorder, the fascination is rare. In extrapyramidal, it is common, or in cerebral ataxia, it is absent. So the fascination is rare in the frontal gait disorder. In extrapyramidal, it is common, or in cerebral ataxia, it is absent. Now the arm swing. Arm swing in frontal gait disorder, the arm swing, it is aggregated. The reflexes are aggregated, hyperactive. In extrapyramidal, it is reduced or diminished or absent. In extrapyramidal, the arm swing is reduced or it may be absent. Or in cerebral ataxia, it is normal or aggregated. So the arm swing in the frontal gait disorder, it is aggregated. In extrapyramidal, it is reduced or absent, or in cerebral ataxia, they are maybe normal or aggregated. Now the heel toe movement, they are in heel toe. In frontal gait disorder, the patient are unable to heel toe movement. In extrapyramidal, the heel toe movements are the normal, and in cerebral ataxia, they are same as the frontal gait disorder. The heel toe movements are unable. Now the turning corners in frontal gait disorder, the turning corners are freezes or shuffles. In turning corners, frontal gait disorder, the turning corners are freezes or shuffles. In extrapyramidal, the turning corners are freezes, or in cerebral ataxia, they are veers away. Now the heel shin test in frontal gait disorder is normal. In extrapyramidal, it is normal as frontal gait, and in cerebral ataxia, it may be abnormal. Heel shin test is abnormal, or it is normal in the frontal and the extrapyramidal gait disorders. Now the postural reflexes, they may be impaired in the frontal gait disorders, they may be impaired in the frontal gait disorder, or in extrapyramidal, they are preserved till late. In extrapyramidal, they are preserved till late, or in cerebral ataxia, they may be present or the absent. Now the falls, they are common in the frontal gait disorders. In extrapyramidal, they are late, or in cerebral ataxia, they are uncommon. So these are the falls. They are common in the frontal. In extrapyramidal, they are late, or in cerebral, they are uncommon. So this is all about the differentiation of the imbalance due to the frontal gait disorder and the extrapyramidal disorder from cerebral ataxia. These are the differentiation between the frontal gait disorder, extrapyramidal disorder, and the cerebral ataxia.